Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's the radioactive pop with Danny Limelight, United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. And make sure you tune into the Alliance blog every week. You heard it here first. Straight from Poppy.
Can you believe that there are some people in this world that did not tune in to the Alliance Vlog podcast? Shame on you!
Shame on you. My name is Ella Indy, and I'm one half of the NWA Women's World Tag Team Champion.
And I'm Kitty Page, the other half of the NWA World Women's Tag Team Champion.
And you better go listen to the Alliance Vlog. What is it called again?
Podcast, period.
Or you're ugly.
Period.
Pretty and Power approved.
Hey guys, check this out. I am officially now sponsored by Dubby. Dubby is a clean energy drink made to give you focus with no crash. If you guys are like me, you're always needing a burst of energy, especially with one with no crash. Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, a nootropic, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. It keeps me awake with no jitters, guys. Check it out. Merch link is in the bio. Dubby.
Are you ready?
Power. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
I'm building an alliance.
God bless the internet.
Okay, let's party.
It's showtime.
It's time for the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin Frazier, Jaden, DKM, and J. Cal.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is J. Cal. That's DKM. This guy over here is Jaden. Welcome to the podcast, gentlemen. How are you today?
We're not talking to you.
What do I do?
Oh, what? You think you have to do something for us not to want to talk to you?
All right. Well, then, Jaden, are you talking to me today?
Yes, even if you are a fan of Nickelback, I still am talking to you.
Well, hey, hold on now.
He's a fan of Nickelback?
I didn't say I was a fan.
You know, that could ruin a person's reputation.
Just like that, the last year of my life. For nothing.
Look at this photograph. Look at this photograph.
Please don't sing.
I wasn't. I was doing my impersonation of Nickelback.
Yeah,
Please don't do Nickelback. And please don't sing while doing Nickelback.
Well, see, Poyo's got my back right there. Y'all better Nickelback off of J-Cal. Thank you, Poyo. Thank you.
Why should we start now?
Yeah, I know.
This is what, a 20-year tradition or something?
It's like, Poyo, you're 15 years too late.
That's why he's so blurry. We
oh no,
we knocked him out of focus. Oh, now he went black.
Oh, you know what happens when you do that?
Now I don't know what the hell happened. I think I took a picture of him.
I did. Yeah, that's what happened.
I've heard rumors.
He took a picture. I told you to look at that photograph.
Well, would you take my picture so that I can remember? I know, different band. Anyways, this is the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We have a great interview in store for you later at the end of the show. Yesterday, I was able to have an opportunity to speak to former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion Jerrelle Clark. One of the things we pride ourselves here at the NWA, the Alliance Guys podcast, is that we cover the NWA in a way that nobody else does, because we cover the future of the NWA. I mean, we've had interviews with Silas Mason. We had interviews with Kerry Morton. You know, they don't build them like they used to, according to him. But then we also cover the present NWA, and I'm talking about guys like Jack Stain, and I'm talking about Jeremiah Plunkett, and of course, you know, Poyo Del Mar, the manager of champions. And we interview those from the past as well. I mean, we talked to Tim Storm. We talked to, most recently, Jerrelle Clark. Earlier in the year, we had the Drew Onyx, the NWA British Commonwealth champion. I mean, we do the past, present, and future of the NWA like nobody else in the business. And I can put my stamp on that because, damn it, it's true. It's damn true. Come on, nothing, guys? Really, nothing?
Oh, there's something, but we're trying to keep you monetized.
Good night, everybody.
What's happening in the world today?
Hey, did you hear about that that article from ESPN? It started making the rounds on Twitter. The top 10 wrestlers under 30. There's actually a full 30-page article. I went through and read it all.
30-page article.
Excuse me, 30 talents, 30 names on that, not 30-page article. Excuse me, 30. The best 30 under 30 is what the list was. But if you just read what was on the on ESPN, excuse me, if you just read what was on that tweet that was kind of setting everything off, they only listed the top 10. Of course, if you want to get the best NWA coverage in a magazine, there is a brand new edition of the NWA Official Wrestling magazine. It's an online magazine, but it looks beautiful. It's nicely done. I was actually reading it before the show started. You guys should check it out. Download it if you like it. If you don't like it, download it anyways. It just helps the NWA get more traction. And of course, stuff like this doesn't happen unless the consumers support it. So if you guys want to keep seeing additional content from the NWA, and this is probably the best form of it because it's just interviews and columns and stuff that you definitely can enjoy. So
I heard that the incredibly talented, wonderful, amazing editor decided to use the term Murdochs that I coined on this alliance-wrestling.com and the Alliance Guys podcast. So I like the fact that the awesome, amazing editor decided to put that in there. I just wish they would give Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators and maybe myself, but more like Dog, a little plug on that. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
How do you feel, Mr. Jaden? I'm not sure I'm fully getting your point.
I just think maybe, since the frame Murdochs was coined here on the Alliance Guys podcast, your number one source of news of the NWA, maybe maybe we should just have a little mention of South Jersey's number one wrestling promotion, Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators, and their upcoming event on Friday night, October 6th in Glassboro, New Jersey for Pause for the Cause or something like that.
It's not a rustic New Jersey though. It's just the regular.
It's a nice part.
I've been to Glassboro. It wasn't a bad town actually.
No, wait a minute. Nice part, New Jersey.
New Jersey's beautiful if you go everywhere like in South Jersey. Once you go in North Jersey, that's where the dump is.
That's where you done messed up, son.
Well,
that's why Smashing Pumpkins is going to be playing in North Jersey and not where, in South Jersey, because they want to play in the dump.
So there you go, Jaden. Doggone it. I like that, though. Anyways, Jaden is good enough of a shield to be a NASCAR driver. Much respect. Well, the funny thing is, when you go to South Jersey, when you go to Glassboro, and you're at one of those Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators, what you don't understand is that you won't see Jaden unless you see the guy wearing the shirt with all the sponsorship signs on it. Then you know you're talking to Jaden. Anyone else is a cheap imitation.
That's why I keep putting on weight so I could sell more sponsorships.
Yeah, me too. I was listening to another podcast today. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but I was just so surprised how many. Oh, there goes the camera. I was surprised by how many sponsors that they had on that particular podcast, and I was like, you know what? Maybe this podcast needs to go find some sponsors. So
just don't go through Cast Media. I heard about that.
What happened to Cast Media? What's that? What's going on there?
They apparently are trying to sell to another company, like I forget what it's, something one, but the director apparently owes a bunch of people a whole lot of money, allegedly, including some big time wrestling podcasts. Uh-oh. And also they conned their way into something like a 60-40 split where they get 60% of the profits, and also they kind of have to run through other stuff too, like run through their website, run through them, and they kind of own piece and stuff like that. And there's a lot of money being not paid for while the owner of Cast Media is talking about his new multi-million-dollar house and vacations with his trophy wife.
Oh wow. Wow. That's crazy, man. And I guess that's why, like, a lot of the wrestling personalities kind of converged on with what Conrad's doing, because, you get some credibility with him. He's been doing it for such a long time now, and has such a cult-like following. But getting back to this list that ESPN wrote that I thought was kind of interesting, because they did mention the top 10 wrestlers. Like I said, there's a 30 under 30 list, but I want to hit the top 10 first, just to kind of give you an idea where that list is at. The number one overall was MJF from AEW, Rhea Ripley from the WWE, Theory, I guess they forgot the Austin again, also from the WWE. Vikingo is your number 4 from AAA and AEW. Dom Mysterio, WWE. Braun Breaker, WWE. Takashita from AEW. But before that, DDT. That was kind of an interesting name on the list. Liv Morgan from the WWE, and it closes out with Logan Paul. Just when you hear that list, Jaden, tell me, man, what does that invoke to you? You're obviously involved in the wrestling community. You know some of these talents that are out here that are under 30. Are there names on that top 10 list that you could easily swap out with somebody else?
Well, I know for a fact that they need to make a ESPN list between 40 and 70, because then the NWA wrestlers could be on that list.
Ooh. There's nobody. There's nobody 70 in the NWA. I had to think real quick.
Between 40 and 70.
All right. DK,
there's some close enough. And isn't Ricky 70?
No, he's close though. He is. I don't know exactly how old Ricky is.
I don't think history knows how old Ricky is.
We talk about his age almost every other podcast,
but I don't pay attention. He was born in 56. So do the date real quick.
56.
Okay, there you go. So, I mean, he is the elder statesman in the NWA. Oh, there it is. Poyo got it. He is the elder statesman in the NWA, but he's not 70.
That would be true if Austin Idol wasn't there.
There you go. DK, like, I know that you kind of, from afar, follow what's happening in the world of pro wrestling. What do you think of that list? Is MJF really the top 10? Is he the number one guy under 30 right now in the world of wrestling?
If you're just looking at potential, yes. I would say yes. The only thing he's got going against him is size. He's just not that big. But talent, charisma, ability to work a crowd, I mean, he's a throwback.
Yeah.
And he does all the things that they did back in the old days that people say, that if you want that type of stuff, you're living in the past and you're not in tomorrow. No, I mean, you look at MJF. He's basically the epitome of a throwback wrestler, and probably has the brightest future, of any wrestler right now. Part of his gimmick is he talks about when his contract's up at the end of this year, I think, or the
2024.
Yeah. That, he's going to start a bidding war with WWE, and let me tell you, that's probably not a joke.
No, I don't think it is.
That's probably more than just a gimmick. I'm sure he's going to be listening to what they have to offer.
And not to get too off topic, but the Elite recently re-signed with AEW. So
smart move by them.
Yeah, I don't. Again, that's another conversation for another time. But DK, when I go through the list, is there anyone on there that you think shouldn't be on that top 10 list? I mean, they've got Logan Paul, who wrestles maybe 3 matches a year at this point.
And draws more people and gets more attention. It probably makes more money than all the rest of them combined. Just off of those Prime sales. What do you think? And as a natural?
I don't disagree with you at all, but I'm trying to make controversy.
All right, Fred.
This is going to be a little bit controversial.
Let's hear it.
In this day, I think it's too early to put Dominic Mysterio in this guy in the list. I mean, they bring him in at 5. Yes, he's gotten probably the biggest reactions in WWE these days, especially the, booing and all that stuff. And, the fans hate him. He's the perfect Tully Blanchard style heel. People will pay money to watch him get beat up and everything. But man, so early in a career when so many things can happen, fans are fickle. They burn out fast.
That's true.
You can be, that's what they're worried about with LA Knight, is that right now he's very over in WWE, and they go, well, WWE start pushing him before it fades. Let's remember that Mustafa Ali at one time was in that situation. And then unfortunately got injured, and Kofi Kingston's the one that ended up taking over.
Yeah.
And Kofi's another one. I mean, when he got hot, he was hot. He burned bright. By the time he lost the title, nobody cared. And, people were upset by how quickly he lost it, but in general, they weren't upset that he lost it.
Yeah.
Just the manner in which it happened. And, nobody's pushed for a second Kofi reign. And so I mean, should he be on the list? Maybe. Should he be in the top 10? Probably not. Should he be at number 5? Definitely not. Again, Logan Paul, is he a committed wrestler? I don't know. Does he draw more money? Honestly, I don't know. I mean, he certainly has his group of fans, but he's another one who I think if you used him too much, he would probably burn out quickly. And so then the question goes, if you can only use him occasionally, does he really need to be, ranked so high? There are a lot of factors to take into determination. I don't know El Hayo del Vecino, so I can't really comment on him. Austin.
That's a Spanish name, and the Mexicans screwed it up.
I do that on purpose, right? Anyway, Austin Theory, I don't know. He's not as big as he was, but he certainly has potential to become a star.
I think Austin Theory is a perfect example of what you were just talking about. The fans getting fickle and not necessarily churning on him, but not appreciating him, I guess is the word, like they did a year ago. When he was kind of climbing into it, he would get some pretty decent reactions. I feel like those have kind of fell a little silent.
Well,
that fell silent as soon as he became the heir apparent to Vince McMahon, one of his projects. As soon as he left NXT, basically.
It was almost the worst thing that ever could have happened with him was being associated with Vince.
Sure.
And then again, they kind of pushed him into the U.S. title real quickly. Again, as part of being Vince, and overexposed him a little bit. Can he go away and come back up? Sure. I mean, I think he has the potential. But rank him higher than Braun Breaker or Rex Steiner or whatever you want to call him.
He's not a Steiner anymore. He definitely won't be a Steiner anymore.
Nope.
Jesus.
No chance now.
Carmelo Hayes. Other people like him better than I do, but certainly he's someone to keep an eye on.
Hayes is on the list when you get to the 30. Can I go through the rest of the list? Do you want to hear it?
Sure.
So the next one, number 11, I'm not familiar with them, but Julia from Stardom. I'm sorry, I don't know that person. Then you've got Butch from the WWE. You've got Jack Perry, the former Jungle Boy from AEW. Wesley from the WWE. I'm going to try on this one. Utami Hashihishita from Stardom. Hope I said that right. At number 16, Tony Storm, AEW. Number 17, Dragon Lee from the WWE. Number 18 is Bandito, AEW. 19, Jamie Hayter. 20, Wheeler Yuta. 21, again, I'm going to butcher it, but I'll try my best. Kaito Kiyomiya from Noah. And then 22, another Stardom wrestler, Saya Kamitani. 23, Yoda Tsuyi from New Japan. I think I said that right. This one was the first one that was a free agent. Was Jordan Grace was listed at number 24, excuse me. Deanna Purrazzo, number 25 from Impact, the only Impact, or one of only 2 Impact names on this list. Then number 26, I don't know this person's name. I think he's part of the Imperium. Dragunov.
He feuded with Walter.
Yeah, he's talented. If he was a little taller, he'd be a big star.
Number 27, Masa Slamovich from Impact. 28, Tyler Bate. 29, Daniel Garcia from the AEW. And then number 30, Shitoi Umino from New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Tyler Bate, he's a true master.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is locally we have Tyler Bateman. So every time I hear Tyler Bate, I'm like, who came first? Tyler Bateman or Tyler Bate?
Well, yeah, everybody knows California likes to make up versions of people, like they have the fake Biggie Bigs.
It's one guy out of like a million, dude.
You know, one thing when you look on this list, I mean, obviously for a mainstream thing like, ESPN, they're trying to hit what they think are the big things.
Yeah.
Too many Stardom people on here.
I don't think Stardom is as big as people think it is, and I'm not trying to downplay it, but it's like it is a very niche promotion, and it's an all women's promotion, which in and of itself it's not a death sentence or anything. It's a very popular promotion among that audience. And the people who love Stardom are diehard Stardom fans. I don't think they're on the fence about it. But as somebody who lives in the United States, that's not even like an option for me to watch Stardom. It's not something that like ever crosses my mind.
No, and I don't know. Let's remember, most wrestling sports entertainment fans are WWE fans.
Sure.
I mean, and about half that number will follow AEW.
Yeah. I mean, that's we see those numbers pretty much every week when they talk ratings.
Yeah, which is where I'm getting them from. So, so when you start getting past that, especially in the US, I mean, I don't know that some of these people will, especially the Stardom ones, will ever be anything in the United States. They might come wrestle here for one of the promotions, but get over, I question. And it's a nice thing to do. Honestly, if I were them, I probably would have looked at more U.S.-based, quote-unquote, super indies than I would have.
Yeah, that's what happens when a basement-dwelling Mark is writing for ESPN. That's all I'm saying.
Well, one of the things that blew my mind, right, and I know I'm biased, but Chris Bay, who works in Impact, has also been spending a lot of time in the Indies in Southern California on the West Coast. That guy is phenomenal, and he didn't even sniff the top 30. I mean, he's better than Wheeler Yuta. He's better than a lot of the names that are on this list, as far as I'm concerned. In marketability, he's representing the Bullet Club, and I know that doesn't mean as much as it did 10 years ago, but he's representing the Bullet Club in Impact Wrestling. That's got to carry some weight, right?
Yeah, look, this article was written. The line is by 2 different people who I've never heard of, which, I mean, I haven't heard of most people, so that in and of itself isn't a big deal. But, recently Dave Meltzer was doing an interview, and the guy was talking to him about star ratings and, like how many star ratings Kenny Omega has got compared to, like, some of the other people, other things. And the guy basically just came out and said, I mean, he was respectful. He basically came out and said that Dave Star ratings are just Dave's opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no science to it. There's no gathering information from across the spectrum or whatever. It's Dave's opinion, and Dave rates higher things he likes and people he likes and everything like that. And it's true. And, that's the thing with these lists. I mean, you or I or Jaden could sit together or separately and come up with a list of top 30 wrestlers under 30, and they might look nothing alike.
One thing that I kind of had a flashback to when we were talking about this is, and you guys might remember, our longtime listeners could remember about 11 years ago, the trio of us spoke to Frank Cuerda of Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Cruda.
Say it again.
Cruda.
Why is that so hard for me to say? It looks like Cuerda to me. Anyways.
You want to put an extra N in there somewhere.
No, there was no extra N, just a really solid W. So Frank Cruda, he came on this show and specifically said, hey, the reason why Scorpio Sky isn't on the cover of our magazines, but John Cena is because John Cena sells magazines and Scorpio Sky doesn't. Now, again, that was also 11 years ago. Now you can get your very own Scorpio Sky action figure from AEW, but that remains to be the same. I think a lot of these lists are literally written for controversy, for the dialogue, because now we're talking about it. It's giving ESPN, even though we don't agree with this list, it kind of gives them a little bit more credibility. Now people are seeking that article out. Hell, I went and found the article based on the top 10 because I thought, wow, they didn't even list a single NWA individual. And here we are talking about it and starting
under 30, Jay. Only Pollo's under 30 in that company.
No, that's not true, because look, we've got I have several names here.
Well look, I'll tell you one that I would have put on there from the NWA.
Well, I'll hear your name in a minute. Let me just go through the list of guys and gals that I know that are under 30, right? And these are people who have prominent positions in the NWA currently. So I'm talking about Kerry Morton, your world junior heavyweight champion. He's 22 years old. You've got Alex Taylor, who's 29. I mean, he's almost off the list because of age. Misa K and Maddie Rinkowski, M95, both of them are under 30. They're the women's tag team champions. Joe Alonzo is only 26. And I mean, Camille, she just turned 30 last year. She would have been my right there. And then Pollo says, really pretty empowered, I think, as a collective. I don't think any of them are under the age of 30. But Kenzie Page,
Ella Envy, they're under the age of 30.
What's that?
You think they're all under the age of 30?
I think all of Pretty Empowered is under 30.
Yeah. You didn't say it that way.
What did I say?
Over.
You didn't think any of them were under 30.
My apologies to those fine ladies, those fine young ladies. I don't think any of them are over 30.
So people who go to the 75th with Jay, make sure you form a circle around him so that they don't beat the crap out of him.
First of all, I'll have you know that I'm friends with the most important Pretty Empowered. I mean, look at that. Look how happy they are to take that picture with me.
One's making a stink face.
Are you sure? Are you sure they're happy to be taking the picture with you, or the
Shush.
Shush. Oh, sorry.
I'm a big Ella Envy fan, and I think I want to believe she's a big J Cal fan. We'll just leave it at that.
Well, you believe that.
Also, real quick, guys, this is what happens when your budget makes you fire your staff writers. You get a bunch of people who freelance and write crap like that for ESPN. ESPN, Sports Illustrated, all those magazines are no longer what they used to be.
Well, especially the online versions.
Especially the online versions.
Because basically you can submit stuff to them, and if they like it, they'll do something. I mean, you can tell a lot of them are not edited.
Luthez has a good quote here. Cornette has said, "Counting the money made is the only way to keep score in pro wrestling." I think that's
true.
But getting back to Miss Kenzie Page, and I know that Pollo kind of put the spotlight on her by saying Kenzie Page, period. I
don't want to hear about her, period.
Well, you see, that's why I wanted to say who I was going to put, because I knew that everybody else would bring her up first. But yeah, Kenzie Page is certainly probably my top one from the NWA. That excuse me, put on the list. I have to go get a drink.
Sure.
I wonder, since we can't tell they're wearing a mask, I wonder if both Blunt Force Trauma are under 30.
And Poyo, I mean, we get it. I'm actually thrilled that you are working with Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I think I might have said to you in the past that that's something that I wanted to pursue at one point as well. But that doesn't change the fact that they're, I mean, you know, so these lists sometimes come up just for the whole distinction to have people talk about them. And it is what it is. Don't die, DKM. DKM is hacking up a fur ball. Poor DKM.
The original Grumpy Cat.
He is the original Grumpy Cat, and he's back at the desk. It looks like he's alive.
That might be hacking up a fur ball. It's kind of the way it feels.
But like getting back to Kenzie Page, like there's some. Oh, this just handed to you.
Dinner.
What is it?
It's a hot dog.
All right.
I was hoping it was a roast beef sandwich for some reason.
I had a roast beef sandwich 2 days ago.
You know, they sell roast beef sandwiches now at Costco. I almost bought one today, and I didn't pull the trigger.
Why not?
Why not? Just because I was in a rush.
Oh, what a rush.
Right?
When you come back to New Jersey, now I'm taking you to Peterson's, and we're going to get you a cheesesteak or a chicken cutlet on a Philly pretzel with mozzarella squares on it.
Yeah, just no. What was it? Was it the provolone that I didn't like, or was it the
pepper jack didn't like you? I think.
Yeah, something like that. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about Kenzie Page, because clearly there is a spotlight forming along this young lady. I mean, you're seeing her wrestling every weekend. I love seeing the NWA posters that are out there. Excuse me. You're seeing event posters for other promotions, but now you're seeing that NWA logo underneath the talent that's signed by the NWA. I love that. I think it's cool. I think it helps establish the NWA, kind of give it some credibility. Like, hey, this superstar that you're going to see this weekend at this wrestling show, yeah, they're part of our family. They're our product, and you're watching them this weekend here at Joe's wrestling promotion, but in reality, they are an NWA talent. I think that's kind of cool, and it kind of helps distinguish the NWA as a bigger deal. Okay, Luthez popped me on that one. Thursdays, it's a ham sandwich days. Yeah, I guess so. But anyways, as we continue to just, I thought my monitor just went out. Oh, thank God it didn't. As we continue to discuss Kenzie Page, her being a former tag team champion and now currently the women's television champion, you could look no further than a growing star within the NWA. I think she's all of about 22 years old, maybe 23. I don't know exactly how old she is. But she is certainly a lightning rod for the NWA and that women's division. Jaden, I know that you are a fan of some of the women's wrestling that's out there. How does Kenzie Page measure up with some of the other female talent that you're scouting for Dog?
I like Kenzie Page. I like all three of the Pretty Empowered. Honestly, they all have something special and unique. Four, true, but I like three of them. But they all have something special. They all have something unique, and they have some marketability. And now we just need somebody who knows what they're doing to truly, truly capitalize. Maybe Poyo should start a company and push them to the moon.
DK, I know that we've talked about this online, offline, especially the dynamic between Kenzie and Ella Envy. Like, it was such a refreshing tag team, something new. The concept itself isn't new, but the application that's going on in the NWA is something different than what we had for the last 5 years. What do you think of Ella Envy, Kenzie Page, and Pretty Empowered in general?
I like them, but you certainly see the separation now. And there's separation between Kenzie Page and the other three, even if one of them's her sister. And maybe part of it, she's just been around in the NWA longer. But she's certainly hitting her stride. She certainly has, if I need to say this about a pretty empowered person, but she certainly matured well in the last few years as far as her in-ring ability, her promo ability, her ability to be the character to the point where you're going, well, is it a character or is this Kenzie Page?
God, I hate the word character.
Well, I know you do, but
Gimmick.
For the marks.
By the way,
kind of like when people use the word ignorant wrong.
By the way, I just looked it up. Kenzie Page was born in 2002.
Yeah, well, you two were born last century.
You're older than me. Don't forget that, my friend.
It's what, 4 months?
Yeah, whatever. It's 4 months I'm going to take and celebrate.
Exactly.
Shut up. Respect your elders, youngin.
In 2002, I was at Angels Stadium during the World Series and got to see in 2002 the Angels win a World Series ring. And she wasn't even born yet. Actually, she might have been born because her birth date was March 5th. So, yeah, she would have been a few months old while I was watching the Angels win a World Series. Kylie is 19. I don't know how old Ella Envy is, or I forget the other girl's name. Roxy. I don't know how old either of them are, but I don't feel like they're very old. But putting that focus back on Kenzie Page, much to what Poyo said in the chat, like anyone who questions her ability in the ring should watch the match she had with Angelina Love. There was a lot of in-ring ability and intelligence in that matchup. What I liked about it was that it seems like, looking back when Kenzie debuted in the NWA, and I even tweeted this, Poyo saw it, I wasn't a fan. I thought, this isn't, she's no big deal. And, but she's really put in the work. You can see her commitment to, she's changed her body shape. She's probably in the best shape of her life right now. She goes out there and has these compelling storylines, these compelling matches. I feel like she is the future of the NWA, at least as far as their women's division. And as we see with Camille, who seems to be the driving force of the NWA as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Kenzie Page becomes that women's world champion and helps carry that brand going forward. Is that what you see too, DK?
Yeah, I certainly think she's capable of it. And I'm curious as to some thoughts out there. She's the TV champion. She's the first women's TV champion. I don't remember what Angelina Love was as far as number of title defenses, but she's got to be getting close to the 7. And so, I mean, how do you out there in comment land, feel about her title reign so far? I mean, and, should she make the lucky 7? Should she not make the lucky 7? Is there somebody out there, if you don't think she should make the lucky 7, who would be a good person to end her reign? I mean, she's perfect where she is. And fortunately, the TV title with its rule, I mean, obviously she can go past 7 title defenses and just keep it. But the obvious thing is that, anybody, once they got there, would want a shot at the world championship. But it's just one shot at the world championship. There's no guarantee, of rematches or anything like that. So I would hate for her to get to 7, cash in, face Camille, and I'll be honest, I don't think she's ready to be the star, the face of the women's division. But but I'm very happy with her where she is. It almost makes me wish they had done a women's national title instead of a women's TV title.
So Kenzie wins the title at the 312 pay-per-view in Highland Park by defeating Max the Impaler in that decision match for the title of the tournament. Then she would go on to wrestle Sierra, gets a victory there. She would wrestle her friend Ella Envy in a competitive match. It wasn't like a finger poke of doom. It was a real wrestling match that Kenzie edged her best friend Ella, her sister Ella. Then she takes the title to Australia as part of the World is a Vampire tour and loses to Cherry Stevens by disqualification. But because it was a successful retention, she still got a credit for the Lucky Seven. Then she defeated... You okay?
Yeah.
Then she defeated Ruthie J at the Crockett Cup pre-show. She lost to Ruthie J, but again, it was by disqualification, so she still advances in that Lucky Seven. Then by reaching the draw with Angelina Love, she advanced. And then also earlier in the Season of Power, she defeated Samantha Starr. So she's at 6 victories right now, and she will be as part of the World is a Vampire tour that's happening right now. I mean, those matches will happen later this month, leading up to the 75th anniversary show. But she has had quite a few victories in that Lucky Seven. And like Poyo said here, I believe that Lucky Seven could be reached for the victory at NWA 75. So, and then the other part of your question, DK, was who should beat her for that? Now, our pal, what would Luthez?
Well, or should anybody beat her?
Okay. Luthez says Markova would be a good transition between the two. Do you mean a transition between the women, between
Camille and Kenzie?
And Kenzie? So I guess that would be the vote that Kenzie doesn't lose the title. Now, the NWA just announced another name that will be appearing at the 75th anniversary show, somebody who we hadn't heard before. And I thought I had a graphic, but I guess I don't. And that would be Miss Allison Kay. And the thing about Allison Kay is that when Allison Kay was in the NWA, I thought she was going to be that team champion. I thought she was going to be the one to win the tournament. She'll be a part of the Burke Invitational Gauntlet. So that means on night 1, she'll be busy trying to vie for an opportunity to challenge Camille for the second night. But if she comes up short on night 1, she could potentially be the challenger for night 2.
I just realized something.
What's that?
All but one of Pretty Empowered is too old to date Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Well, alrighty then.
So with the possibility of number 7 coming at 75, we could potentially see a third title defense for Camille and her lose the title and still look strong. I mean, there are so many different options, right? Because she is supposed to have that. She's defending on night 1 against Markova, and then she defends on night 2 if she's successful against the winner of the Burke Invitational, and then there could be another Lucky 7 challenge. Or was there anyone still left in the championship series that had a women's title match? I mean, wasn't La Rosa Negra? Didn't she have another opportunity for that title?
Boy, I don't remember. That's been so long, and I don't even remember who was on the winning team this year because they did so many.
It was Team Rock and Roll, but I don't remember if La Rosa Negra was on that team.
Yeah, I just don't remember. So
now I'm going to look while you guys discuss how great Kenzie Page is.
I thought we just did that. But hey, to do a quick segue, so we saw Allison Kay's coming back.
Yeah.
And of course, she's only had one match with Camille, which was like a 10-minute time limit draw or something.
Wasn't it 2? I swear I remember 2 matches.
Who?
Allison Kay and Camille.
I'll look that up next.
One was early, one was more recent.
Well, I know the most recent one was I know the most La Rosa versus Camille at 3-1-2.
Okay, so that's probably the match then.
I only remember the one as far as them being 1-on-1.
Talking about Camille and Allison Kay.
Right.
So they had a singles match for the title on an episode of Power that went to a time limit draw, and then they faced off again in a tag team match. Remember when Kylan King was kind of being like Camille's keeper, almost like she was the gatekeeper to get to Camille. You had to go through Kylan King,
Right.
and they tag teamed against the Hex and won.
And so,
You sure there wasn't an early match like before they won the tag belts?
That's
like before Allison Kay left to go to Ring of Honor?
So before they won the tag belts, Marty Bell and Allison Kay weren't really around. You know, they made their comeback for the Pretty Empowered show, and that was around the time when Camille kind of became the one time, right? That's when she became the brick house that would win the Women's World Championship. She had that one match on television that they had recorded before the pandemic. And then when she came back, she had one match against Heather Monroe on Primetime Live. And then when the season of Power started, she kind of made her march towards Thunder Rosa and the Women's World Championship. And once she won it, then she wasn't going for Thunder Rosa. She was going for what's her name? Help me out. She's in AEW.
Deeb.
Who?
Maybe I've lost. What's the question you're asking?
Who did Camille beat for the Women's World Championship?
Something Deeb. I can't remember her first name.
Serena Deeb.
Serena
There
Deeb.
you go. Yeah. So. Yeah. There we go. Okay.
Oddly, one of Camille's earliest challengers for the belt was Kenzie Page.
Yeah, it seemed like they were married for a short time. I mean, every title defense she had was against Kenzie Page. It happened at the Gathering in Charlotte, North Carolina, before the 73rd anniversary pay-per-view, and then I think it happened on an episode of Power. And it was kind of a regular thing for a while.
Here's something interesting. She defended against Christy James. I'd forgotten about that.
Was that in an NWA ring or
no? It was for Coastal.
Where?
For Coastal.
Okay. I'm gonna get to some more comments too. Mandy says, "Hello. I definitely agree about Kenzie. Great wrestler and isn't afraid to get in the audience face, which I also love to see." Dave Scooby reminded us La Rosa versus Camille was at 3-1-2. Hoyle reminds us that Camille versus Markova is night 1, and the winner of the Burke Invitational gets a shot at night 2. Hoyle also had Serena Deeb ready in her pocket. Luthez says, would really like to see Deeb back in an NWA ring. I think Serena Deeb was extremely talented, but I don't think we're going to see very many AEW stars transition backwards into the NWA. And then Poyo says, to kind of point a reference, it was Allison Kay who won the title at the Crockett Cup 2019, and then Thunder Rosa defeating her on an episode. I think it was on Power when she won the title. Might have been the Hard Times pay-per-view. It was one.
I think it was the pay-per-view because they had a rematch at Power.
And that was when they were still filming their pay-per-views in the Georgia Public Broadcasting Studio, so it kind of all blends together. Then, of course, Thunder Rosa lost to Serena in AEW, and then Camille would come and take that title from Serena at that wasn't Empowered. That was the pay-per-view before Empowered.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And then Poyo says Power Trip in Oak Grove, Kentucky was a Camille versus Kenzie match, and the night Kenzie got signed. And then also Luthez said, is she even in AEW anymore? I know she got injured. I know she was out for a while. And I know that she was a coach, not so much as a wrestler anymore.
Yeah,
but
she was actually hired by AEW as a coach. And then they put her in the ring with Thunder Rosa, and she kind of got over.
No, they wrestled their first match. Thunder Rosa and Serena Deep wrestled on the Primetime Live, Dave Marquez's promotion. That was their first match, and Serena Deep was definitely hired to be a wrestler for AEW because she had just come off being a coach for the Performance Center with the WWE, so she was going a different route with AEW.
Well, I know she was coaching from the beginning too. Because they actually made a deal about her being one of their coaches. So
okay. Well, and so that
let's be honest, AEW isn't known for their great booking of the women's division. In fact, I would say the NWA runs their women's division better than AEW does, but then almost everybody runs their women's division better than AEW does.
That's like being the nicest guy in prison.
Yeah, I know. What's wrong with being the nicest guy in prison?
No, but nothing. You did a good job there.
So as we continue the conversation, other things happening in the NWA. I don't know if you guys were able to catch the segment with Joe Galley and EC3 that they did an interview on Instagram Live. I kind of enjoy the cross-platform efforts of the NWA trying to get their content out there. Although I still think they should have taken the parts of the video and put it up on their YouTube channel, maybe as shorts, just to kind of help people who aren't maybe Instagram savvy. But for those of you who didn't see it, yes, EC3 has accepted the stipulations involved with this title match, so it will be a bull rope match. That is definitely going to happen at the main event on night number 2 of the 75th anniversary show. It is official. I can't say that I'm surprised that he would take those odds, but it's now been confirmed. And then during that segment, EC3 began to elaborate on the career that he's had, and where Tyrus has always kind of either been in the background cheering him on or right there inside the ring with him, with the exception of the time where he laid him out in Impact. But for the most part, this was all kind of a bit of an introduction to what's going to be coming up next. And I know this isn't Control Your Narrative. This is Exodus Pro. This is a wrestling promotion that was created by EC3 to also kind of be a housing for unsigned talents to kind of develop their personalities, develop their wrestling, to get noticed by bigger and better. He essentially is just kind of almost looking to be like an independent developmental wrestling promotion. And some of the matches that they've already announced for their next show, which is August 12th in Ohio. Of course, EC3 is going to be there, so he's going to put himself on the card. He's going to take J-Rock on Saturday, August 12th. And then also Mims will be in action. Mims, representing the NWA, will be in action, taking on Day. I don't know anything about Day, but I think it's kind of cool that we're seeing Mims get an opportunity to wrestle outside of the NWA. And then, of course, probably the most interesting part of this is that Tom Latimer, who is so close to that Lucky 7 series, we keep talking about it as well, he's going to have an opportunity to wrestle somebody. And again, another successful defense for Tom Latimer puts him over the Lucky 7, which means we could potentially see some fallout at the pay-per-view as well. I have to ask you guys, what are your thoughts on, number one, the NWA partnering up with EC3 in this Exodus Pro Wrestling? Do you think this is a good move for the NWA to have this allegiance with them? And do you want to see Tom Latimer get that Lucky 7 in Ohio?
I think it's a very good idea. I think a mini territorial system or an affiliate system would benefit the current version, Lightning One version of the NWA. If only an amazing, awesome, spectacular editor would share that information with the powers to be in the NWA. I do think that if they can get maybe 3-4 good, solid places for these guys to work and ladies to work, to get more reps under them to get more exposure to keep the NWA name out there. I think that's an excellent idea. And I like the name Exodus a lot better than Control Your Narrative. So I think that's also a positive. And as for Latimer, I just honestly, if it's not on TV, I don't think it should count as a TV title match. But that's just me.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. Poyo just pointed out that, and I kind of knew this. I didn't know that Coastal Championship Wrestling and Boca Raton Championship Wrestling. I didn't know that they were a joint effort, but that's interesting. We do know that they do partner with Joe Kazana Promotions. That's been a pretty regular thing now with Exodus Pro. And then I will say this, like we know for in the past, like they worked with Wildcat. I don't think that's a relationship that's still continuing, but I could be wrong. And there's other promotions out there, like Smoky Mountain has said on occasion that they wouldn't mind hosting NWA title matches either. As Jaden points out, NWA is creating a mini territory system wherein its talents gain added exposure and additional opportunities. And this is something that we've been advocating for on this show for quite some time. In fact, we talked about it at length last week about how it feels like, there's more and more wrestling promotions who are working with the NWA, featuring their talents, and that maybe the territory system is coming into play. DK, how do you feel about that? I mean, Jaden just said that he thinks it's a good thing, but how do you feel about the NWA working with Exodus Pro, and how do you feel about Tom getting that title defense on that promotion?
Well, if they recognize it, that's the one weakness we've had with the NWA in the past, is that they don't always bring up the fact that if titles are defended elsewhere. And so, if he goes, and if it's a title match, and if it's a title defense, and I hate TV titles that are defended not on TV, so I don't know how that works exactly. Then sure. Otherwise, it's more likely probably a non-title match, a title match. Like I said last time, alliances don't work anymore. But that doesn't mean that these little affiliate, working with some of these smaller promotions across the area isn't a bad thing. When the original idea of TNA floated with the Jarretts and
You stop distracting him, Jay.
No, that's interesting. But getting back to what I was saying, when TNA originally started, a lot of people have probably forgotten this, but the idea was they were going to run shows in different NWA territories on Wednesday night, and then the territory was supposed to run a show like Friday or Saturday or both or whatever, and that would give them a chance to give the guys more work. And of course, that failed after the first episode of TNA, when they realized that people weren't going to spend $30 for a ticket for a $10 pay-per-view. And so, it's good. It's good to give your people work. It's good to give your people non-televised work, especially lower up and comers, a chance to get in there. And Jay abandoned us. Why does he always abandon us? And
I think his volume messed up because he was trying to talk, and luckily we couldn't hear him.
Good. So anyway, Jaden is somebody who was a licensee under one of the versions of the NWA of the past. I mean, it's good to work with the promotions, but isn't there also a limit in this day and age? I mean, you don't want to start creating, NWA coastal championships, do you?
Well, I could say, when Dr. Zirconian was promoting Dog, he had associations and working agreements with NWA and NWA-esque promotions. I mean, don't forget the Dog Championship was defended in NWA Mountain State, NWA Smoky Mountain, NWA Premier, NWA whatever their Kentucky promotion was, I forget.
Blue Mountain.
Bluegrass. There was a affiliated promotion in South Carolina that it was defended in. A affiliated promotion in North Carolina. It was defended on the NWA Legends events when they were associated with the NWA. The NWA partnership could have worked if somebody was strong enough to actually make it work or knew how to make it work. But I don't think the problem with the NWA is they knew how to. And yes, we really didn't need a Coastal Eastern Shores or whatever it was championship. But at least that was a championship that was supposed to be defended with multiple NWA promotions in the state of New Jersey, or at least in the area. That was the original idea of that one. It's just, unfortunately, all those other promotions just quickly fell by the wayside.
Well, and also then, I remember this conversation, since I already said who it was, conversation with Tony Gibbons one time, and he was talking about, he goes, look, I can't bring in the national champion and have my guy lose to the national champion. Can't bring in the North American champion and have my guy lose to the North American champion.
To me, that just says that you're a bad booker.
You can't bring in, well, I mean, to a certain extent, one of the problems when the world champion only came in occasionally, there was a long time in between some of the bigger matches, but you never really knew what was going on in the world outside your area back in those days. And so, in these days, if you're trying to get your guy over and be more, I kind of understand. I understood the logic.
It was faulty logic.
Well,
if you knew how to book it correctly, the champions for years were getting, were wrestling against the top stars, and yeah, there was no big national title going around or North American, but the world's the junior heavyweight were going around, and if they knew how to book it correctly, the wrestler came out stronger, even in a loss. The problem is these guys don't know how to book anything correctly.
Well,
they had to book, and they have to deal with egos who think that they're big stars when in reality they couldn't draw shit they couldn't draw flies if they were covered in shit.
But that's true. But even again, back in the day, you brought in the world champion. You might bring in the world junior heavyweight champion. He never traveled as much as the world champion did. In fact, the junior heavyweight championship was basically controlled by what's his name, Tri-State, McGurk, and so there, again, the Von Erichs, it was hard enough for them to never beat Ric Flair or Harley Race, over the years. So imagine always having. I mean, you'd end up with, you would have ended up with 50 dozen dusty finishes trying to get all the title matches in.
If somebody didn't know how to book, we wouldn't have had the Freebirds versus Von Erich feud, because that started with a Ric Flair versus Kerry Von Erich match.
Sure, but Kerry didn't have to then challenge next for the North American title. Kerry didn't then have to challenge next for the national heavyweight title. Kerry didn't have to challenge next for the TV title. Kerry only challenged for the world title, and the world champion left in December, and he wasn't back for 3 months.
That would be true if he didn't also try to challenge for the Missouri title, and he didn't also challenge for the Central States Championship.
We never
and
knew.
then he had to defend against the Texas Championship or the Americas Championship. He still was challenging for them and not winning them too. Yes, they were more territorial.
No, you're not really, because when they were on those runs, they either won the title, or for a while, or they never really were challenging for it. By the point the Freebird feud came on, basically, It was the best thing that happened in world class because it let the other guys hold the championships. Because in world class, every other American champion was a Von Erich. Every other Texas champion was a Von Erich for a while. They were challenging. And world class followed the Japanese style title defenses. They rarely had title defenses. Chris Adams, in the area. Chris Adams may have wrestled every Friday night and every Monday night in Dallas-Fort Worth. When he was the American heavyweight champion for his longest spell, the last one as a heel with Gino, he defended the title twice in Dallas-Fort Worth. And then he lost it. So that wasn't happening. And we didn't know what was happening in Missouri. They didn't sit there and go, oh, Kerry challenged for the Missouri State Heavyweight title. We didn't even know David Von Erich had been the Missouri Heavyweight champion. Unless you read a magazine. By the time we read the magazine, he was dead. So, that wasn't the case. And I was here and I was watching and I knew. We didn't know what was going on until it came out in the wrestling magazines 5 months later.
That's where being New Jersey was better. We knew everything that was happening in Texas. We knew everything that was happening in the mid-south area. We knew everything that was happening in the AWA because it was all on here.
Well, that was to your advantage, but
23 and 1/2 hours of wrestling TV a week, original wrestling television in a week.
Here we didn't. Not only did we not, but I would say that was the case in most promotions.
Again, I'm going to have to disagree with you because I've been told many times, even by you, that you can get other promotions in Texas.
Not until like 85, 86.
So it was later in the decade?
Yep. The first promotion we got that wasn't world class was actually AWA.
Was that on ESPN?
I don't remember if it was. No, it was on an independent network here. And they only lasted about 6 months before they stopped showing it. We would occasionally hear what was going on in San Antonio, but not very often. And that's, San Antonio finally sold out to, or San Antonio syndicated in Dallas-Fort Worth. And so we watched them for about a year, and then they went broke and World Class bottom. And then, of course, they stopped syndicating it here.
Do you remember the interview that Billy did with Dr. Tom? Did you watch that? Because it was actually probably Billy's best work with the NWA. I honestly really enjoyed that. I wish he would do more of that. With all the legends that come in, I wish he would sit down and do those kind of like shoot interviews, I guess. And Billy, Dr. Tom was talking about as a kid growing up because he lived, I believe, in the Houston area. I believe I might be mistaken, but he would see the wrestling that was happening there. And then one time on a family trip, he saw wrestling on the other part of the state, and it was the same exact match he'd seen just a few weeks earlier, and it was the same storyline. So, even though there were two separate markets, they were basically running the same story just a few weeks apart. So,
they did that. They did that. They often recorded it one place and showed it 1 week, and then that same thing this next week, and the same thing the third week after.
So it just kind of tickled me when you guys are talking about not being able to see what was happening on the other side of the state. Like that was verified by Dr. Tom during his podcast.
Oh, well, look, back in the day, Georgia Championship Wrestling, they basically had 3 cards, lineups, and then they would run those all across the state. So, Harley Race is in town and Tommy Rich is the challenger. Well, Harley Race will wrestle Tommy Rich in, 2 of the places and somebody else in 1.
Yeah.
And the national champion, the fuse between Tommy Rich and Ron Bass. Okay, Tommy Rich and Ron Bass headline for 2 weeks, across the state. Because, you didn't get instant results. You didn't know what was happening anywhere else. That's, a lot of people remember now because it started coming out. But when World Championship Wrestling, which was still part of Georgia, the Road Warriors versus the Sawyer brothers, happened like 3 or 4 times. And every night, the Sawyer brothers beat the Road Warriors for the national tag team titles. And then the match took place in Atlanta, and that was the official title change. And then they fired Brett Sawyer, and they gave the belts back to the Road Warriors, saying that the title changed hands in Ohio.
All right. Well, changing gears a little bit here. Like I said, we have a interview that's coming up in just a few minutes with former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion Jerrelle Clark. I hope you guys will stick around for that interview because a lot of interesting information, and especially if you weren't a fan of the NWA in the early 2000s, it's a lot of historical stuff that was happening back in those days. But I do want to show something that just came in the mail for me today. It's been up on the site for a while. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, we are selling new T-shirts, and I really love how this one came out. I hope you guys will take a look at it. It's the Alliance Blog Lucha Libre Mask shirt. I wish I would have had that in Mexico because that would have been pretty awesome. And for those of you that are going to be a part of the 75th anniversary show, make sure you reach out to your boy Jay because I'll be handing out some T-shirts, and it's kind of a sneak peek of what it's going to look like. I guess I thought it would be more distorted than that because of the bag, but anyways, have some cool stuff coming to the 75th anniversary show. So get in my DMs. Let me know what T-shirt size you wear so I can have a shirt ready for you. But we're going to take a break real quick, and then when we come back, it is going to be the interview with Mr. 630, Jerrelle Clark. So give us just a minute, and we'll be right back. Hey guys, check this out. I am officially now sponsored by Dubby. Dubby is a clean energy drink made to give you focus with no crash. If you guys are like me, you're always needing a burst of energy, especially with one with no crash. Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, a nootropic, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. It keeps me awake with no jitters, guys. Check it out. Merch link is in the bio.
Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's the radioactive pop with Danny Limelight, United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. And make sure you tune into the Alliance blog every week. You heard it here first. Straight from Bobby.
Well, that's been unfortunate because it was supposed to go into the interview right now, but for some reason my computer is not cooperating with me. So hang tight for just a second, and hopefully we can get this up here in a minute. Yeah, I'm already under enough pressure. I don't need you pointing to your watch.
Actually, it's just my wrist. I don't wear a watch.
Oh, even better.
You want to put the Jeopardy theme on in the background?
Yeah, here we go. Hey guys, so it's a special treat on this episode of the Alliance Guys podcast. I have with me today former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, and that is only just a fraction of the accolades that this man has. But, you know, being an NWA podcast, we're going to focus on that. My guest today is Mr. 630, Jerrelle Clark. Jerrelle, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, man. Very happy to be speaking with you because in the early days of my NWA fandom, you know, a lot of our viewers now are they just kind of found the NWA when Billy Corgan purchased it, or might have been familiar with the NWA under the previous ownership. But your version of the NWA is a much different time and space. We're talking about the early 2000s, about 2005. I think it was like the height, the pinnacle, or maybe it was 2004. Excuse me, was the height and pinnacle of your time in the NWA. And, you know, I just kind of want to get your feelings about what the NWA meant to you back then, like as an up-and-coming pro wrestler. What did those three letters mean to you?
Well, in the beginning, when I actually started, you know, I literally didn't really care where I wrestled. My entire goal when I started wrestling was just to get in front of a crowd one time. That was literally it. I didn't go through the traditional training that everyone did and such. You know, I was trained on a high school wrestling mat by a gentleman named Jeremy McCullough up in Baltimore, Maryland. So, he just knew I was a huge wrestling fan. This was at the, height of the 90s era. And okay, I really need to start this off with some backstory.
Let's
So,
go.
all right. So I went to college on a wrestling scholarship. I went to Morgan State University D1 college program. Um, and while I was there, due to Title IX, they had to cancel the wrestling program.
Oh no.
Right. So they gave us an option. They said they can release us from our our contract. I forgot what it was called,
Commitment.
our commitment. They can release us from our commitment, and the kids could transfer without losing a year, or we could stay at the school. And since Morgan State was the only school that even offered me a scholarship, I decided to stay. And all we have to do was keep a 2.0 grade point average, and we kept our scholarship. Only thing is, it would never go up, never go down. So now that the tone is set, I stayed at Morgan, but I still wanted to be part of the wrestling program. So I went to a local high school down the street.
Okay.
And while I was there, I ended up becoming the head coach at this is a Northern High School, Baltimore, Maryland. I was assistant coach, but I ran everything because the head coach was not fully versed. He was just somebody who just took on the job.
Right.
So one of the kids' parents there recognized me from wrestling at Morgan, and he got chummy with me, and we just started talking. Come to find out, we're huge, Attitude Era wrestling fans, and going back and forth. And then he told me that, hey, he was a pro wrestler. Kind of intrigued me, and he said if I gave his son a little bit extra one-on-one training, he could train me. And I'm throwing up air quotes with that. He could train me.
Gotcha.
So 97, 98, I did that with him. I helped his son wrestling and stuff. I never got to see what happened of his son because in 99, something else happened at Morgan. I got married and I transitioned over to cheerleading.
Hey man, you kept your scholarship though, didn't you?
Yeah, and I got another scholarship for cheerleading too. So,
But by the way, just to throw it out there, the current NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion Kerry Morton is currently going to college on a cheerleading scholarship. So I don't think anybody will mock you for that at all.
oh, nobody. Let me put it this way: I am not ashamed to say that I transitioned over to cheerleading. It was great. It was a fun experience. My wife watched me like a hawk when I went to practices. And on top of it, we won a national championship,
Nice.
small school division, and then we placed 8th in NCAAs. I was on ESPN my senior year in college.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I kind of got off track.
No. That's what we're here for, man. We want to know what makes you tick and how'd you get from point A to point B. Obviously, you grew up in Ohio, correct?
Yes.
So growing up in Ohio on a college scholarship that brings you to the Northeast, then you go from amateur wrestling to cheerleading at the university. That's pretty cool, man. Like you kept your scholarship, you were competitive, and in the meantime, you were coaching high school wrestling, getting married, and getting some professional wrestling training, man. That's the story so far.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of how it went. I mean, it was really weird, but just to fall back on the wrestling thing, I didn't go through any traditional training and such. I went to a couple indie shows, watched Jeremy wrestle, but I never fully vested into it at that time because like I said, the next year I transferred over. I not transferred. I went over to the cheerleading.
Right.
So let's fast forward a year and a half. I graduated from Morgan in 99. And the day after graduation, me and the wife hauled ass back to Florida. I was tired of the weather up there. So I was bouncing around in Florida. Now, again, I know no one in the wrestling business. I barely knew anything about wrestling etiquette. Just the basic on bumps and uh, some transition wrestling. So I was bouncing from job to job because I was looking for a job. I had a degree in graphic design and advertising, so I came down to Florida and I trying to get a job, but I didn't have the correct training, so it was almost possible for me to get a job. So I was driving up and down the streets, just looking for now hiring signs,
Right.
whatever. I passed this one school, uh, Cypress Creek High School. Actually, my kids go there now. Well, my oldest just graduated. My youngest, he goes there now. I passed the school. I was like, oh, I wonder if they have a wrestling program. So I stopped in and I talked to them. They were telling me about, you know, getting involved with the wrestling team. I'd have to go through some certifications and stuff. Long story short, my mother told me, hey, the schools around here need substitutes. I was like, great. So I applied for it. I got hired. And then I talked to the guys at Cypress Creek again, and they said, okay, you've already got your foot in this door. I'll sign you up. And then I ended up working at Cypress Creek for 3 years as a teacher slash wrestling coach.
Wow.
So this is where it starts to transition into wrestling. I know it's a long setup.
That's all good.
I was literally struggling. My wife, I married her straight out of high school, so she had no college background, no college education at the time. So we were making ends meet, but I needed an additional income. So one of the kids' fathers, who I was coaching, he worked at this place called Pirates Dinner and Adventure. It's a stunt dinner theater show themed about pirates.
We have one of those here in California too, and it's
yeah. I flew out to help it.
Okay. Oh, you did?
Yes.
Amazing. Yeah, we were just there last year. We went around October of last year, Halloween time.
Yep. I trained most of the cast that opened up the show. It was
wow. Incredible.
Small world.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I went down to apply. He said that they were hiring because they just got a new director. So I went down to the show and I introduced myself to the director, and he didn't know anything about the business. He was just taking it over because they was just throwing a lot of money at him. The guy was amazing though. So he said, "Look, fill out this application, and then I'm going to take you onto the stage." We went to the stage. He said, "If you could, do a backflip." I did a backflip on stage. He said, "Can you jump on trampoline?" I said, "I've never jumped on trampoline, but I did diving when I was in high school." He said, "Well, it's kind of similar to that." So I did a couple things on the trampoline. It's like, okay, great. If you come watch the show tonight, you like it, you're hired. I was like, okay, easy as pie.
Yeah.
So I'm watching the show that night, and one of the guys in the show, he's just taking the fight scenes to a whole nother level. I mean, he's taking bumps. He's selling. He's doing all. I'm like, I like that guy.
Was he doing good facials though?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. So I told the director, I was like, yep, I want to do it. He hired me. Long story short, I ended up working there for like 14 years, off and on. But the guy that I was looking at, he ended up being my trainer.
Okay.
His name is Les Allier. Les, he actually worked on the indie scene here in Florida as Bones the Cutthroat.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if you don't know, for those who don't know much about my beginnings before NWA, I tag team with Les, and we were a pirate themed tag team called the Cutthroats. Skull, I was Cutthroat Skull. He was Bones the Cutthroat. Skull and Bones, yada yada yada.
I love it, man. That's amazing. Because that's like that was your life right then. You were working pirates at night, so like why not be a pirate in the Indies? That's amazing.
Yep, and we were we were a comedic tag team. So we would always get to shows early and such, to uh, to work in the ring because after talking with Les, I told him I was rough around the edges. I hadn't been involved in the actual wrestling business. I had just had some little training, and he worked with me on that. And I I've been trying for the last couple of years to scrub Jeremy McCullough from as my trainer off the internet. I want to replace it as Les Allier as my trainer. And I cleared that with Les. Les said that would be fine. So Les is my actual trainer. So we would get to shows early, and he would train me and such. And um, I would be there 4 hours early, train, be the last two to leave. And I did that repeatedly for like a year and a half with Les, riding his coattails.
I'm assuming that means that you did a lot of setting up the ring as well. You can't train if there's no ring set up while you get there.
Yep, I trained every opportunity I got. Only thing I had really going for me was athletic ability, and just learning how to take some bumps.
So you literally were learning the art of pro wrestling, like from the deep end. Like you literally were out there in front of a live audience. I mean, sure, you said you got some mat time before and after shows, but you still were on a show in order to get that time. So like you were kind of learning on the fly, right?
Yep, I was learning. I learned it all on the fly. That's thanks to Les.
Now you had your first match in 2001, right?
2000. I think it was 2000.
2000. That cage match is not entirely reliable. It's got a lot of good information, but it's not always accurate. So your career started in 2000, and again, this was under the tutelage of Les, right?
Yes.
So you go from being this comedic act, Cutthroat Skull, but then there's a transition, and you start coming out to the ring as Jerrelle Clark. Obviously, the pirate gimmick, it kind of goes away. What did it mean for you to be out there as Jerrelle Clark and kind of represent your own personality instead of being like more of a gimmick?
Well, there's another story to that.
Oh, let's go.
Okay, so Les and I are still friends to this day. However, Les can be very abrasive. If you don't get his kind of attitude, his kind of comedy and such.
Sure.
So we started trying to work for IPW in 2001, 2002.
Ron Nemi, right? Ron Nemi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we would go down there before shows and try to get on. They had like little pre-show workouts to see if they could, snatch some early talent. And Joe Price was down there as well. That's when they were working together. So one day we came down there and we were working out really early. This is 2001. Came down there and we were working out really early. And this is where the 630 was first unveiled. Les he said, "Hey, do that 1 3/4 off the top rope. I dare you." Here I am, 26 years old, young, dumb, young and dumb. And I was like, okay. So they pulled out a crash mat, and I did it's a 1 3/4 on a trampoline.
Yeah.
So I did a 1 3/4 onto the trampoline, onto the mat.
Yeah.
Boom. And Ron was like, "Do that again." Okay, so I climbed back up there and I did it again. And he said, "What if we put somebody underneath? Could you still do it?" I was like, "Oh, well, let's try it."
Sure.
So this guy, he lives in New York now. His name was Wade Rudolph. That's his name. He's like, "Okay, I'll lay down there." So I jumped and I did it on Wade. And Ron said, "Okay, if you can do that during the show, I got a spot for you tonight." And then Les was like, "All right." And it was like, no, it's just for him.
Oh, shit.
I immediately looked at Les and I was like, "Dude, if you don't want me to do it, I won't do it." Because we were there as a package. And he's like, "No, get your shine. You do you." So I had some singles gear and they asked me what did I want to come out to, and I was like, well, I've been, if I was going to do some single stuff, I originally did a Little Baller, but that's not going to kind of float here. We could use my middle name, so it was like, okay, we'll do that. So that night, um, Rod Steele was working uh, this guy named Justice, and Rod got disqualified, but he came out and he was beating the crap out of Justice after the bell. So I came out, I made the save, and I slammed him, climbed up to the top rope, and I did the 630. Boom, perfect, nailed it. Stood up, landed, and just turned around and watched, and the crowd was just dead silent, absolutely silent. I helped Justice off. His music hit. We go to the back, and everybody just was like, "What the hell just happened?" The crowd was still quiet at this point. So Ron comes up to me and says, "Look, you're on next show. We'll figure something out." I was like, "Okay." I'm happy as a lark. Did not care. The next show, a month later, on the flyer, it just says Jerrelle Clark, Jerrelle Clark, Jerrelle Clark. When they introduced me, they introduced me as Mr. 630 Jerrelle Clark, and I turn around like, that's me? What? Okay, and then I run out and throw my hands up, and the crowd goes mild. But they remember the 630.
Sure. Who wouldn't?
And I was just like, okay, let's just roll with it. And I had no pure instinct of going out there as Jerrelle Clark. I just wanted to be out there and just get in front of a crowd and entertain. That's just me. I like to entertain. I like to be stupid. I like to, show my personality. Good thing I have some personality, because those early singles matches to me were rough.
Well, I mean, look, you just said it a few minutes ago. You're training on the fly. I mean, that could be expected. But before we go further, let's talk about Ron Nemi, because it sounds like he had a pretty pivotal, point in your career by, basically adopting that Mr. 630 name for you and giving you that opportunity. What was it like working for Ron Nemi in those days when him and Joe Price were putting those shows on?
It was great. Ron always treated me well. He always treated me well. He, just wanted me to go out there and actually learn and get better. So he put me with people like Naftali, Justice, Livewire, any local talent who came, or any, up and coming indie talent that came through. That were, cruiserweights. He would put me up against them, and it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed everything Ron and Joe Price offered me. Every opportunity they gave me, allowed me to grow. And if it wasn't for Ron, I wouldn't have got my shot at TNA either, or ROH. So it was crazy.
So let's get back a little bit to young Jerrelle and growing up in Ohio. Obviously, you said that you were a fan of the Attitude Era of the WWF, WWE, and you got to see, like me. I mean, we're pretty similar aged. I'm guessing you grew up watching Stone Cold and The Rock, and before that, Triple H, or during that time, Triple H, Shawn Michaels. Before that, Razor and Diesel and 1-2-3 Kid. Did you watch more than just the WWE at the time, or were you watching WCW, or did you grow up watching NWA?
Oh, WCCW, NWA.
Yeah, okay.
I'm all the way back to the late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, I'm showing my age. From the Von Erichs running roughshod to Jim Cornette smashing everybody with the Rock and Roll Express. So yeah.
So
go ahead.
when you got to Florida and you're wrestling now on a somewhat regular basis for the NWA Florida, which that name still holds a lot of meaning for wrestling fans, going back to yesteryear, but also that time frame when you were wrestling. I mean, Steve Madison, he's the guy that always pops into my head. Lex Lovett, of course, Steve Corino coming down to defend the 10 pounds of gold. You were you were in that hotbed of wrestling, were those 3 letters wasted on you, or did you appreciate what that was when you first stepped into the ring?
I appreciated it immediately. Um, when I was working for IPW, they weren't doing cross-branded shows, IPW/NWA at the time.
Right.
I was always begging Joe because it was another opportunity. But I was always begging Joe to get on NWA shows any way I could. And Joe knew I was green, so he kind of kept me from it for a while.
Yeah.
And until he thought I was kind of ready to, be a part of, a match if it made sense. But I really wanted to be in NWA shows because I just remember watching, the old school days with Sting and, Ole and Arn Anderson.
It's good stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
great stuff.
So then I guess this begs a question because, like I said, we're close in age, and back then, even at the height of like your reign as World Junior Heavyweight Champion, and we'll get to that more into that in a minute. But it wasn't like you could just go online and download wrestling matches. Back then, it was very exclusive, either tape trading or you could read about what was happening on different. Like the AOL Grandstand, if I can date both of us, or the Prodigy home screens. You could get online to read about the wrestling, but actually watching pro wrestling back then from the independents, it was all tape trading. Did you get involved with any of that while you were coming up in the sport?
No.
No?
I didn't go that deep.
Okay.
To be honest, it was still as passionate as I was about watching wrestling and such. There was a point where I was not, I wouldn't sit back and try to watch every old tape that I could.
Right.
At that point, I mean, I did it when I was younger, when I was like in my 10 to 15 years old. I was trying to get every piece of material I could, but actually being a part of the business now, I was more in awe of actually physically doing it than going back and studying it. But trust me, if I could reverse that, I would go back and study more so I could put on a better product myself as I was.
Yeah, and I mean, hindsight's 2020, right? We could all do things a little bit differently if we had that opportunity to. But one of the things that I remember is hearing your name a lot, even before you won that title, and I think it was kind of based on the fact that you're doing such a unique maneuver, like you explained. That's what got you the spot on the IPW shows. Did that open up any more doors for you in Florida? Like, were you starting to get other opportunities to apply your trade?
Yeah, it definitely opened up a lot more opportunities. At the time, Ron had IPW had a small TV showing, and it started to get around all the way up to ROH, where Gabe Sapolsky, he even saw one of the matches and he reached out to Ron to see if I was interested. So it opened up a lot of doors for me.
So keeping in line with that, a couple of the names you had mentioned already, somebody like Natali, you seem to kind of almost be married to him for, I guess that's not the appropriate word, but you guys spent a lot of time battling for that lightweight IPW championship, the NWA Florida junior heavyweight title. What did Natali mean for you as a wrestler and having those matches with him? Did it help you grow? Was the storyline fun for you? Did you guys, like you said, you're still in contact with him today?
I'm not still in contact with him. I mean, I do have his number. I could possibly reach out if he hasn't changed it. But at the time, it was kind of a small circle of folks who we all wrestled each other all over the state. Me, Naftali, Justice, every now and then Roderick, Cedric Strong. We were all kind of like stuck together, in multiple indies. And it was great to be with those guys because they were all so knowledgeable. They were all so great. We were all kind of new outside of Natali, who had pretty much been in it since birth. But they welcomed me, they assisted me, they helped me. You know, it was great. I I I loved every second of it.
Going back to kind of talking about the NWA, obviously it was a far cry from its glory days in the late '90s.
Mhm.
But as wrestling for NWA promotions, did that carry any kind of weight in the circles that you were in? Like, hey, I'm wrestling here, but I also wrestle for NWA Florida, or I've had matches at NWA Virginia, or I'm wrestling matches for NWA wherever. Did that carry any weight for you, or was it just in your circle? Was it just another wrestling company?
Amongst wrestlers, depending on the NWA territory you're talking about, it carried weight. At the time in Florida, we had Joe Price's NWA, and then there was another NWA in Central Florida. I forgot the name of it, but
Championship Wrestling from Florida.
I believe so. Um, but if you ask people which one they wanted to be on, everybody wants to be on Joe Price's. Um, so I mean, yeah, the specific territory carried a lot of weight, um, and those names still meant a lot to the people of my age or older at the time. The younger guys really just wanted to be on, all the up and coming shows, indies, New Japan, um, Jersey All Pro, ROH,
Sure.
any hot shot thing that was going, CZW, they wanted to be on that stuff, and they would skip out on the NWA shows because that's old. Um, but those guys are far and few, more. Those are the younger guys, and they're far and few between. But NWA Florida IPW, we were kind of like a family, and we all stuck together and had good times discussing everything.
Now, obviously, we lost Joe Price unexpectedly and a lot earlier than I thought anyone would have expected. But that Florida territory was something fierce. I remember, again, we didn't have a YouTube to just go on the internet and watch these matches. So we would read about the results. And I'm here in Southern California knowing about a guy who at that point was still mostly wrestling in Florida based on what people were writing about you and that territory at the time. Tell me a little bit about working for Joe Price and how that territory. I mean, you kind of already talked about the territory, but talk about working for Joe Price.
I mean, working for Joe Price was the same as working for Ron Nemi. It was a great opportunity. They both took care of me. They both gave me matches that would help me learn. They both taught me psychology because when I first started, I just wanted to do 6:30 every match just to get just to get on top. And they was like, no, here's how you should do it. Here's when you should do it. And then they made me make it make sense. Um, and- excuse me. And Joe was a big part of that. I know I said it earlier. Joe held me back from being on the NWA shows until he thought I was ready. But once he felt I was ready, he let me go. And thanks to him, uh, that gave me my second TNA shot. So, and that when TNA was still part of the NWA. So thanks to Joe, he took me to the stars and beyond.
So that's awesome, and obviously I'm pretty sure he was a big advocate of yours when it came to that junior heavyweight title, which you secured on January 10th, 2004 by beating Chris Draven in your hometown of St. Peter's. Wasn't your hometown, but your home promotion of St. Petersburg, Florida for NWA Florida. What was that night like, and how soon did you know that that you would become the next junior heavyweight champion? Who broke the news to you?
Are we breaking kayfabe here? So, at the NWA 54th or 55th anniversary show,
Yeah,
that's where it kind of all started. So it was held in West Virginia. Joe asked me if I wanted to be a part of the show. He wanted me to be a part of a cruiserweight spectacular. It was me versus Roderick Strong versus Danny Doring in a 3-way match. And so we drove all the way up to West Virginia, and this was night one or night two. This was night one. So we drove all the way up to West Virginia, and in this match again, Roger Strong and Danny Doring. I'm like, my eyes are just wide because I'm in there with Danny Doring.
Right.
This is going to be fun, and that match was an absolute blast. I broke kayfabe so much in that match. I think all three of us did. Getting chopped and laughing through it, but it was hilarious. We had so much fun, but at the same time, we all shined. I got to do every signature move I possibly ever came up with to that point, and when I came out of that match, Jeremy Borash was the first person to greet me on my way to the back, and I don't remember what he said, but all I do remember him is coming up and asking me, what are you doing Wednesday night? This was when they were still doing the Wednesday night pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I said, whatever you need me to do. He said, good, we're going to call you.
Wow.
Boom. That next Wednesday, I was on the TNA pay-per-view. But when I left Jeremy, I went to the back, and I'm like, God, my head's pounding. I'm so excited. Next thing I know, I have a couple of the promoters and territory owners coming up and talking to me, just trying to get a little bit more information from me.
Yeah.
The next NWA Florida show, or maybe two shows after that was in September.
Yeah.
The next, maybe 2 shows later, October or November, Joe asked me, how would I feel if I got an NWA title shot, a junior title shot? I'm like, you think I'm ready? He's like,
yeah,
of course you're ready. You showed everyone that you're ready, and Joe pumped me up. As you can see, I'm skirting around some stuff. Joe pumped me up, and he said, your title shot, I'm air quoting, your title shot's going to be in January. So if you want to get more people here, tell them come on. It's going to be a big night. So all I could think of for about 2-3 months was, I'm going to get my title shot.
And this is already coming off of you winning the X Division, NWA Florida X Division title, which was, kind of a mirror of the Impact TNA X Division title. You beat, in a 4-way, you beat Roddy Strong to win that belt. I think that's pretty impressive. And you were already, at that point, you were starting to get dates outside of just this local area in Florida. You were starting to work the Wildside TV tapings, which a lot of people don't know, but back then Wildside was a big deal. It had ties to previously getting talent into WCW in its early days, but in its later days, it was still one of the first wrestling programs that was syndicated all over the United States in that time frame. Plus, they even had an online show, so a guy like your buddy Jake out here could literally log on to American One on the internet and watch some of the matches from Wildside back in 2002, 2003, 2004. So you were actually getting your name out there even before you won the championship.
Yeah, it was great. That's all I can keep saying is it was great. Again, thinking back to all I wanted to do originally was just have one match. To now look at me, I'm sitting up here, getting booked all over the country. Different countries.
Did you get to travel abroad through wrestling? Because I gotta be honest, what I know of your wrestling is what I used to read back in the day. Plus, I've been looking at Cage Match. I never knew that you actually got to travel outside of the country. Did you get to travel abroad for pro wrestling?
I've been to Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic.
Nice.
So it took me a couple places, and I wouldn't trade it in for nothing in the world.
Did you get to know Chris Draven before you guys wrestled, or was it just the night of in the ring and that was it?
I actually met him Um, I don't think he was a champ at the time of the anniversary show.
Yeah.
But I had met him there. Um, I I will say this. I don't know if you have gone and watched that match on YouTube with me and Chris Draven. Um, it was it was not one of my finer moments. Um, because and I, if Chris, if you ever hear this, I apologize. I was young and stupid. But Chris, he jumped. He was supposed to give me an elbow drop, and I was supposed to roll out of the way. However, uh, he jumped from the wrong corner, and when I tried to roll, um, he straddled me.
Oh.
And broke his leg.
Oh.
Yep. And my dumb butt thinking, this is the finish, go to the next move. I grabbed him, dragged him over to the corner by his broken leg, like a dumbass, hit a stiff 630, and picked up the W. So
rough night for the Dravens that night.
Yeah, very rough night. Chris, I apologize. I know I haven't spoken to you in forever. Apologies all around. Sorry.
Well, that's the thing. Don't try this at home. This is a dangerous sport. It's not ballet. It's pro wrestling. I mean, ballet is tough too, but these kind of things happen. So tell me about now. You're living this dual lifestyle. You're the champion. You're the world junior heavyweight champion. You're making appearances for TNA on their Explosion. You've had a few matches on the pay-per-view. I mean, you're really starting to get your name out there, and you're starting to build up this reputation, this Mr. 630. Again, I was watching you on Impact and being wowed by your ability to do that 630, but just your wrestling in general, the whole cruiserweight style of high-flying wrestling was very entertaining to me. Then you got to wrestle somebody, well, I know this was before, but you got to wrestle Elix Skipper. And Elix Skipper is also known for his high-flying action in the ring, a lot of his a lot of crazy moves that he did, literally walking the cage. And I'm sure you got to see him with his time in WCW. What was it like wrestling against somebody like Elix Skipper? And was he somebody that you looked up to before you got into the world of pro wrestling? Okay.
So I'm going to say this part. Again, I know it sounds like every time you say something, I have a story.
That's how interviews work, man. This is great. This is good stuff.
Well, my very first TNA match was on Explosion against Elix.
Okay.
And, I walked in. Bill Behrens turns around to me. He says, look, go talk to Elix. He'll tell you exactly, how things should go. Do whatever he says. Have a good time, but make sure you listen to him.
Okay.
So I walk up to Elix, introduce myself, say, hey, I'm your opponent for tonight. What would you like to do, and how would you like to, what would you like to do? And to this day, these words have stuck with me. He said, look, nice to meet you. We want to go out there. We want to have fun. But look, I already got a job. What do you want to do? I said, what?
Wow.
And those words stuck with me. He let me get in everything I wanted to get in within the time limit. And then we finished the match the way he wanted to.
What a good dude, man. Like being so selfless like that. That's pretty awesome.
And every time I was in a promotion after that, I told people the same thing. I already got a job.
Yeah.
So
well, that's awesome. I don't know anything about Elix Skipper except for what I saw on TV. So to know that he was so willing to help put you over, I mean, that's awesome. That's really cool.
It's weird. It's not weird. It's weird that you just brought him up because we're actually friends on LinkedIn.
Oh, nice.
And I just hit my 12-year anniversary of my current job. And he actually reached out to me.
See, again, small world, man. That's cool. That's cool. So being world junior heavyweight champion, I'm sure you wish it would have lasted longer. Had a good run, about almost 9 months as world junior heavyweight champion. when the title left, it went to the Boston Bad Boy up in up in the Northeast. Was there any hard feelings when they took the title off of you? Did it sit well with you, or did you feel like you had more time?
No, I had no hard feelings whatsoever. Um, they said I had a rematch. Well, they said I would get a rematch, and Jason actually booked me for a rematch. I went up to Boston. I think I was up there for 4 days. I did multiple shows. I met Kenny Omega before he even got big, and we actually we had a good time that weekend. And then I ended up the weekend wrestling for the title again with Jason. And it was a fun time. No hard feelings whatsoever. Again, I went into wrestling with the mindset of just enjoy myself, and that's exactly what I did.
Was it hard on you? Obviously, let me rephrase that. You had a couple of matches with Jimmy Rave when you were in Wildside. He recently passed away in the last few years. Did you have any contact with him, and did you keep up any kind of relationship with Jimmy Rave over the years?
No. One thing people tend to know about me is I'm kind of a solitary person. I keep my friend circle very small.
Got it.
And yes, I was associates. We were always, very, very, very well sociable with each other through FIP and Wildside,
Right.
and all the other shows that we worked on together. But he did reach out to me 2 years ago when things started to kind of go south, and we had a discussion. And I wished him well. And then I reached out to him again last year just to check on him before he passed away. And that was it. Maybe like 2 weeks later, I found out he was gone.
It was very unexpected, and just because in this world that when you don't know, you kind of put pieces together and like, oh, I figured everyone's buddies, right? Everyone still talks to each other, and with the fact that you guys are both former junior heavyweight champions, of course you guys are best friends. Like, obviously that's an imaginary world, but I'm glad you got to reach out to him before he passed away. We had talked for a very long time about him coming onto this podcast, and it never worked out. And then he got sick, and of course I wasn't going to ask him to come on the podcast when he was in the hospital, and then he was gone. So it's just a sad story, sad to hear about him. But let's move forward. Let's talk about FIP. This was one of those super indies, kind of born on the back of Ring of Honor, that was based kind of in the Southeast. You had an opportunity to wrestle there and had several matches there. And again, always with the junior heavyweights, but the level of competition that you got to face off against, again, like Sal Renaro, James Gibson, Scoot Andrews, Wardell Walker, Steve Madison, Cahagas, even MVP was there, Spanky, CM Punk. I mean, there was a lot of great, talented wrestlers that were in FIP that a lot of people forget. What was it like stepping into that FIP venue, and did you at any point feel intimidated by some of the indie darlings that were there?
The only time I really felt intimidated when I was wrestling there was when I had a one-on-one with Claudio Castagnoli and Daniel Bryanson. So those two one-on-one matches, because I could not chain wrestle to save my life, and those two were the best.
Right.
And I'll say this: wrestling for FIP was like wrestling for TNA for me. It was a lot of star power. These were a lot of guys that I watched on a day-to-day basis. I studied on a day-to-day basis, and they stood out to me. And I enjoyed every one of those shows. Thank you to Sal for giving me the opportunity. And then when I left, I left and then came back, he put me on a pre-show instead of have to re-earn my spot.
Awesome.
So, but I ended up, working with him again all the way through until my first official retirement. So, which I did on the FIP Jeff Peterson show.
And those Jeff Peterson Memorial Cups, those were originally from NWA Florida through Joe Price, and they continued to live on with FIP. That's a pretty cool thing. I'm literally looking at some of the names that you're wrestling against in FIP, and you said Brian Danielson, you said Claudio Castagnoli, but I'm talking Austin Aries, of course Roderick Strong. You already mentioned him. You had to face some pretty good competition while you were there. Kenny King, Mark Briscoe. I'm sure Jay Briscoe was in there as well. Did you? Now I know a name that I see pop up a lot here is Sal Renaro. Sal Renaro still wrestles for the NWA. I wasn't sure if you were aware of that. Did you have any kind of relationship with Sal Renaro?
Sal was hilarious. Sal was absolutely hilarious. I enjoyed all my interactions with him, all the way from Wild Side to FIP to ROH, where he was actually my first ROH opponent. Sal's Sal's cool. I was recently going through Twitter, just because you brought him up. I was recently going through Twitter, and somebody posted a video about a Jerome story. And Sal was sitting up and he was telling people about the Jerome story. Long story short, Davey Richards, he didn't know my name to save his life. So he always kept calling me Jerome, and I wouldn't correct him because it's Davey Richards. I wouldn't correct him, but it went on for a long time.
At some point, I would imagine it's kind of funny too, where like he keeps calling you the wrong name, and it's wrong, and everyone else knows it's wrong, but no one says anything. I'm sure. That would have given me the giggles.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I think he didn't get it until, oh my God, he didn't get it until like maybe 6 or 7 months later. We were doing the Generation Now show in Cleveland, Ohio for ROH, where Generation Next last match.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where he finally got it right.
So let's fast forward a little bit towards the end of the first round of Jerrelle Clark. It is 2011. It's I Believe in Wrestling. You wrestled against NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion Craig Classic, somebody that's been on this show, someone we know very, very well. Having an opportunity to wrestle for that title after such a big gap, did you have any kind of butterflies going into that match, or was it just another day at the office?
I can't say it was another day at the office, because if you don't go into any kind of opportunity with a little bit of butterflies in your stomach, then you're not ready for it. You can't go into anything overconfident ever. So anything can happen, and wrestling Craig, he's a talented person. We two different styles, even though he is a junior heavyweight. It's two different styles, and just have to work with each other and put on the best match possible. And the only butterflies I had is just make sure we all come out of this healthy and have a good time.
So then the I guess the first retirement was in 2011, and you stepped away from the ring. Was there a particular reason why you decided to step away, or was it just you felt like it was the right time, or was this? Did you always know it was just going to be a pause?
I felt it was the right time. My original reason was to be healthy. I sustained a back injury my first year in wrestling, and I kind of worked all the way through it for those 10 years. But at the same time, I was still part-timing at the dinner theater show, which was a consistent gig. I was under contract now, and I was making enough money to keep me happy without having to worry about doing without having to worry about doing indie shows every now and then. So I decided, well, let me get out of this before I seriously get hurt, and just enjoy the stunt show where it's a safer environment, and which it didn't end up being, but uh, I also had a goal in mind that I didn't want to be one of those wrestlers who tried to hang on to the glory days. I wanted to go out with people remembering me how I was and not what I looked like at the time.
Going back in time, in 2011, when you did step away, were you still following the wrestling promotions? Were you still, because I know some wrestlers who once they take those shoes off, they leave them in the ring, they retire, they're done. They kind of turn their back on wrestling, not because they hate it, not because they don't enjoy it, but because they know if they continue to watch it, it's going to call them back to the ring. Was that your case, or were you able to still enjoy wrestling, watching wrestling as a fan and no longer an in-ring performer?
I went cold turkey for 6 years. Cold turkey, because I knew the second one little thing got to me, I would be called back, and that one little thing got to me in 2017. So,
what was it that got you?
So, at the stunt show that I worked at, one of the guys there, he was young. He wanted to be a wrestler, and actually, he's a wrestler now. He's doing a pirate gimmick now. But he asked me about a wrestling school. I told him about Chasen's I Believe in Wrestling, or Team Vision Dojo. I told him about that, and he asked me to come down and work with him. And I'm like, this is my friend. Definitely I'll come down and work with him. And I ended up doing that. And Chasen was like, oh, we're having they pulled the Jeff Peterson Cup show for that time. So, or was it the floor? I think it was the Jeff Peterson. Don't quote me. It was a cruiserweight tournament. So he kind of got me to step out for that. So I wrestled Chasen in the first round, and then Vander Ortugan in the second round. But it was a pretty big thing for me, because I went out there and I did everything that I still could do, even though I was maybe 20 pounds heavier at the time. It was kind of a proof positive to myself that I could still do it.
For sure. And so you had several matches with Believe Wrestling in 2017, kind of slowed down in 2018, and of course by 2019, you were heading towards that second retirement. Is that where we stand now? Is there any kind of lust for the ring, or is it out of your system now?
All gone.
All gone.
Absolutely all gone. Hold on, you're about to hear my wife. She just got home from work, so sorry. She's talking on the phone to her mom.
No worries at all. This is the real world, man. I completely appreciate that. It's funny because over the years I've had a lot of the junior heavyweight champions come onto this podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with Kevin Douglas, who the modern day hero. He won the World Junior Heavyweight Championship after Craig Classic surrendered the title or forfeited the title. Then later we had on Chase Owens, who was a former junior heavyweight champion. We've had Jason Kincaid, another former junior heavyweight champion. Then we had Barrett Brown, who was the last junior heavyweight champion before the NWA sealed its history when Billy Corgan bought the NWA in 2017, right around the time you started back into wrestling. At that time when you came back, did you have any delusions of maybe going after that, going back to the NWA or potentially trying to grow beyond just what you were doing in Florida?
Absolutely not. I wasn't even gonna if I was gonna do anything, I wasn't even gonna leave the Team Vision Dojo. But Les, back to him, he runs a promotion out here called Local Pro Wrestling, which is actually kind of growing, and he wanted me on his first show. So we actually tag team again on his first show.
Did you guys go back to the old gimmick?
I had some gear made. He wrestled in t-shirt and shorts, but we did our old gimmick. Obviously, he was still Bones Cutthroat. I was Jerrelle Clark, but we did our old shtick.
That's awesome. So reflecting back now on this time, now that you're a couple of years removed, obviously you said it, you're not going back into the world of wrestling. What are some of the things that you missed about being a pro wrestler?
The pop. And it was recently brought up again last week. Not last week we went on. Last week, we took the family on a cruise, and I entered into, if you've ever been on a cruise, they have a lot going on. So I entered into the belly flop competition, and it's on my Instagram if anybody wants to see it. I did a belly flop, and I ended up winning the competition. It was ridiculous, but the pop and the reaction that I was getting from just being in that position or being in front of a crowd before was hilarious to me.
Did you work the crowd? Did you get them going? Did you do the whole Hogan with your hand to your ear and all that stuff?
I did my old comedy gimmick from when I was the pirate, when I was the Cutthroat.
Nice.
I did that, and the crowd ate it up.
Now, by any chance, I haven't seen the dive yet. I'm going to go look for it later. Did you do a 630 belly flop?
No.
Could you do a 630 belly flop?
No, I probably can't.
That's fair.
I could probably a 450 belly flop. I thought about it. Trust me.
The other day, I've never been a pro wrestler. I wrestled in high school. I've always been a fan of pro wrestling. I've always enjoyed the high flying aspect of pro wrestling. The junior heavyweights, cruiserweights were always my bag. I recently went to Mexico just to see some lucha libre live, and one of the things I've always wanted to do was do a moonsault. And so I got my happy ass in front of a pool recently and was doing a moonsault into the pool, and I was quite proud of myself. Very Vader-esque. I felt like I had a very much a Vader style moonsault into the pool, and I'll take that.
Oh, good for you, man. Trust me. Sure. My goal is I'm 47 now, so on my 50th birthday, I'm going to do my last backflip ever. So I'm trying to save up for that.
I get it. Jerrelle, looking back on your time in wrestling, looking back in the NWA, is there anything you would have done differently aside from studying those tapes?
Nope. Nope. Everything I did took me exactly where I needed to be.
That's awesome. I love that mentality. That's a very PMA type mentality, the positive mental attitude. I thrive on that. So I love hearing when other people echo that sentiment. Do you keep up with any wrestling these days? Do you watch any of the NWA, or is that any of that stuff even interest you anymore?
I can scroll through wrestling now and watch it without getting an itch. But as far as like specific indie shows and stuff, no, not really. I'll go through and I'll see some YouTube compilation clips.
Yeah.
But that's about it. Unless somebody texts me and say, hey, I'm going to be on WrestleMania, or hey, I'm going to do SummerSlam or something to that extent, I'm really not paying attention.
That's completely understandable. It's your time in that industry is up, and it's smooth skies from here on out. I want to thank you so much, Jerrelle, for coming on. I wish we could have done this 15, 17 years ago. But I'm glad we finally got an opportunity to speak. You're somebody who I've admired for a long time. Like I said, watching you in Impact in those early days, I believe even they acknowledged you were the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion. And to me, that was a big deal because that wasn't one of the titles that they featured on that program. So I remember you being there and like thinking, wow, that's really cool. The Junior Heavyweight Champions now in Impact and TNA. that was always fun to watch you, and especially later getting to see some of your matches outside of Impact and watching some of your matches from Joe Price's NWA Florida. That was a lot of fun. So I want to say thank you for that.
No problem. I do want to say something that might have got me some heat at one point.
Feel free to.
When I was in TNA, I wrestled AJ Styles twice. When he was the X Division champ.
Yeah.
And both times I was the World Junior champ.
Yeah.
And the first time it was on Explosion, I asked them, do I need to bring my belt out? Because I brought it because they were part of TNA. I mean, they were part of NWA.
Right.
The first time they told me no, maybe next time. And sure enough, next time it was it was on Impact. And I was like, hey, it's next time you told me to ask again. And it's like, no, we're not recognizing that. I was like, okay. But yeah, there was actual couple times when the X Division champ versus the comparable title in the NWA.
It's a shame that they didn't acknowledge that on television. You know, like we knew that as a fan, I knew it, but that would have been kind of cool, at least for the NWA. But that whole relationship was really kind of one-sided. You know, looking back at it, and I don't blame either party for doing what they did. Of course, the NWA granted Impact immediately legitimacy by having that 10 pounds of gold and those tag titles featured on their programs, and a lot of good talent, you know, from Impact. I mean, that carried the NWA name in a time when the NWA struggled to be relevant. So there's a lot of benefits to both sides, but at the same time, like at the end of when they ended that relationship in 2007, I think it was more than appropriate to end that deal. But yeah, man, it would have been cool to see you taking the World Junior Heavyweight Championship on it. You know, even if it was Explosion, it would have been cool to see that.
Yeah, it was. I really wanted to, but they weren't having it.
Well, again, I want to say thanks for your time, man. You know, it's funny because in preparation for this, I kind of looked back at some of the old interviews that you did, and I remember in 2005, you were welcoming a new baby into the family, and I'm thinking right now, I welcomed a new baby into my family in 2004. And she turned 18 last year, so I think you probably have an 18-year-old now, and you know, props to you.
Have a college freshman.
A college freshman. See, there it is. Yeah, my daughter too. So, congratulations on that. You did something right. You got him into college. So, congrats to you, sir.
Congrats to you as well.
Thank you, man. And again, thank you so much for your time. And again, this is like an NWA podcast, so a lot of the people who are listening to this might be hearing you for the first time. Is there a place that we could send them to watch some of your older matches? Do you have like a YouTube or something where they can kind of catch up with the old Jerrelle Clark matches? Uh-oh. Did I lose you?
Okay, you got me?
Yeah, there you are.
Okay, sorry. I was going to YouTube to see what my handle was. My YouTube handle is Jerrelle630.
Of course it is.
So I got a bunch of matches uploaded from there. You know, it's just a bunch of old and you know, IPW stuff, a bunch of TNA stuff, nothing from like pre TNA era. Okay. So, but yeah, if you can grab my name and just search it, because hey, I search myself all the time. So,
well, hopefully you'll be searching this video later too, and again, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. Really appreciate it.
No problem, boss man.
All right, you have a good one.
You too. Thank you very much for having me.
And that was Jerrelle Clark, guys. So that's going to do it for us this week on the Alliance Guys podcast. Until next time, we'll see you at the matches. Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are The Alliance.